Hey guys, this is Fourth Down Fantasy here, and today I'm going to be going over some Week 2 daily fantasy football value. These are my top value plays, but be sure to follow me on Twitter to see the other value plays at Fourth Down Fantasy. It'll be at the end of the video too. And I apologize for my voice. I've kind of come down with something recently, but yeah, let's get going. So at quarterback, I love Tyrod Taylor. He finished QB6 last week despite playing in that terrible weather. He goes to the Saints, who Ryan Fitzpatrick ran for one and threw for 4 touchdowns on. And he's going to be throwing all game, and his rushing gives him a nice floor and a nice ceiling. And he gets to play in a dome this week, which is an upgrade from last week's weather. This week, I also like Jimmy Garoppolo. I know it was a tough week last week, but the Vikings defense is pretty darn good. He's severely underpriced. He's down there with the likes of Derek Carr, right above him, and Tannehill. And he gets the Detroit defense at home, and they made Sam Darnold look like a god. Moving right along. Some other quarterbacks that I wouldn't mind is Pat Mahomes. He gets the Steelers defense. Put up crazy numbers last week, and he's not being priced like he did, to be fair. Those numbers did come on like a hill catch and run underneath for 80-yard touchdown, and he came on 15 completions or something like that, but I still would like a piece of that game. And it's a lot cheaper than Ben Roethlisberger, who's also hurt and didn't look very good last week. Alex Smith, he's not really an upside play because they're probably going to get up on the Colts really fast and not be throwing a lot. But they are a terrible defense, and he was pretty good last week. Case Keenum, kind of the same thing. Not a huge upside, but he's got a nice floor against a Raiders defense that's not that great, and he looked really good last week with DT and Emmanuel. And then lastly, Nick Foles is starting quarterback versus the Bucs defense that Drew Brees absolutely destroyed last week. I mean, he looked great against them, and he's not really being priced as such. I mean, he didn't look great last week, but he didn't look like the worst. On running backs, my favorite play this week is James White. He got Rex Burkhead, surprise concussion. Sony Michel dealing with the knee injury. Jeremy Hill on the IR, and Edelman still suspended. The Jags are a tough matchup, but last season they yielded top 10 in completions and top 10 in yards after catch to opposing running backs. And the Patriots are going to be throwing all game long, and they're going to be dumping down due to the pass rush. And this is nice because usually with the Patriots, they'll be up. They're not going to be throwing the whole game. So it's kind of a change. And he really did seem to be the third receiving option on that team last week. Chris Hogan had like 2 targets, and then there was Gronk and Dorsett in front of him. I love McCaffrey this week. He's not a huge value per se, but when you have money to spend, this is the guy I'm spending it on. When Olsen's not in the lineup, he's just way better. He gets the ball more. He averages more per touch. He did pretty good against the Cowboys defense. That's a great defensive line and has some really good linebackers and some great linebacker depth. And he gets a pretty good matchup too. Atlanta defense is okay, but this week they're going to be missing Deion Jones and Keanu Neal. Those are their 2 best players for sure. So that's definitely going to help. Tevin Coleman, I mean, there's not much to say. The guy is great when Devontae's out. He gets pretty hard Panthers run D. I mean, they kind of locked Zeke up last week, but they are pretty susceptible to receptions out of the backfield. In this game, it could be low scoring, but it could also easily turn into a high scoring shootout game. So I definitely would like to get a piece of that in Tevin Coleman. James Conner, you might not want to play him in tournaments. He's going to be on a lot of teams. But if you're in a head-to-head, you gotta have James Conner. I mean, he paced all the running backs in touches last week, and he gets the Chiefs. Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler just went insane last week. And this should be one of the highest scoring games of the season. Honorable mentions, AP and Chris Thompson both looked really good last week. Indy defense is not very good. They should put up a lot of points. Both should see a lot of carries because of the game flow. Kamara, I mean, as long as Ingram out, the guy's a stud and he's not being priced as such. TJ Yeldon, if Fournette sits, is going to get like 20, 25 carries. He's a pretty good running back. And Corey Grant's an interesting dart throw for a tournament, save a lot of money. Marone's talked about using him more, but then again, he has talked about him a lot. I'm not going to advocate for that, just wanted to bring that to your attention. Corey Clement, I like that one a lot. Darren Sproles is out. Ajayi is not going to catch a lot of balls. And the Bucs defense is not very good, as Alvin Kamara highlighted last week. Naheem Hines, Surprisingly, after the atrocious preseason, he was out there and he didn't look terrible. He looked explosive, and there's some targets, like 6 or 7 of them, a few carries. Redskins aren't great against receiving backs, and Andrew Luck's probably going to have to drop back 45 to 50 times again. At wide receivers, I love Tyler Rocket. He's the most familiar target for Russell Wilson. I believe he's the only receiver that's been there for more than 2 years with him. Doug Baldwin's out again. He played more in the slot more than ever last week, and slot receivers are just going to score more than the traditional XY receiver, the alpha dog, despite them being more pumped up. They just do, at least in the middle and lower tiers. The Bears' defense is pretty good, but Rodgers proved they had holes, and Randall Cobb did from the slot also prove that they are beatable. And they're going to be throwing a lot, and even if he doesn't get the same, he's not going to get a whole lot of volume, maybe he can still always get you 15 points on one play, 12 points on one play. He's just that fast. Nelson Aguilar is my definite second favorite play this week. 10 targets last week, and he had a carry. Alshon Jeffrey's out again, gets the Buccaneers defense. Nick Foles dumps it down a lot. And there's no Darren Sproles this week. And so, what's not to love about this guy this week? Dante Pettis is really, to me, only a great play if Marquise Goodwin's out. If Goodwin's not out, he's the number 3 receiver on a team that didn't look great last week. But if Goodwin is out, then Pettis is a great talent, and he won't have Darius Slay on him, which is the most important thing. And he kind of reminds me, he's got that Quincy Enunwa role, which is a guy who went off last week against the same team. So, honorable mentions, Bruce Ellington. If Will Fuller sits, he's Watson's second target on an exposable Titans on an explosive offense. Randall Cobb, only if Aaron Rodgers is suiting up. One way to beat the Vikings is from the slot. Antonio Brown, this is a week where this guy's going to have probably his best performance, the best matchup you could ask for, and he was pretty darn good last week in that terrible weather. Now that Josh Gordon's getting cut and out for this game, it's getting cut or maybe traded by Monday. Rashard Higgins is the new number 2. Don't let someone fool you saying, Antonio Callaway is the more talented receiver. He might be more talented, but Antonio Callaway ran about routes on about 20% of dropbacks last week, whereas Rashard Higgins ran routes on about 65% of dropbacks last week. Mike Wallace is another good dart throw. He was really close on a few deep balls last week, and the Bucs, they looked like a bad defense last week, and he's the number 2, maybe 3 receiving option on that team this week, now that Alshon's out again. And he's pretty cheap, considering he had 0 catches last week. Juju, he's pretty good last week in the bad weather, and he has a great matchup again. And, I just want as much of that game as I can get. And Devin Funchess, whenever Olsen out, he's just really good. And Deion Jones and Keanu Neal being out, that's just a big blow to their team. George Kittle is a great tight end. I drafted him in all my redraft leagues, basically. I either drafted him or Jordan Reed, which is both panned out pretty well. But anyways, he had 9 targets, and he was crazy high leading in target share, yards in the air. It's just great. He was a fingertips away from like a 70-yard touchdown. He's getting a Detroit defense that isn't great, and he's not going to have Darius Slay on him for the most part. So that's pretty important. So I love him. I love me some Ricky Seals-Jones. He's extremely cheap. He only had 3 catches for 19 yards, but he did have 6 targets. And that offense can't really do worse than they did last week. He was on the field for an insane amount of snaps, ran a lot of routes, and the Rams just gave up 180 yards to Jared Cook. This kind of hit or miss, but I like the value here. Some honorable mentions: Jonnu Smith. He's the top option now that Delaney Walker's out for the year. If Mariota plays or not, I still like him because Blaine Gabbert's going to be checking it down a lot. And Mariota isn't even that great of a thrower and looks for his tight ends a lot compared to other quarterbacks. I love Jack Doyle. They throw to him. They throw to him a lot. They throw the football a lot. And he had a good week last week, even though Eric Ebron did get the touchdown. Jack Doyle ran a lot more routes, saw a lot more targets, saw a lot more catches, and was on the field a lot more than Eric Ebron. And I do think that offense could support 2 lower-end tight ends, especially considering that they throw 45 times a game. I like David Njoku gone. or David Njoku now that Gordon is gone. He's the top red zone threat. I mean, I don't really know who else they're going to throw to down there. And he gets the Saints this week. So they did not look like a good defense last week. I feel like I've been saying that a lot. Ryan Griffin, if you're going to go really cheap, he saw 5 targets, 3 of them in the red zone. Although he did have 0 catches, that does help his price. And lastly, I like me some Ian Thomas. He's the fill-in for Greg Olsen. He's cheap. He's got a good touchdown shot, and Deion Jones and Keanu Neal would be the primary ones that would guard him, and they will not be there. Moving to defense, I like the Vikings this week. Most people will be like, what? Packers, but they're pretty cheap, and they are probably the second best defense in the league, in my opinion, maybe third. If I wanted to put the Bears at 2 and Jags at 1, but they are good. And hurt Rodgers is what they're going to be playing most likely, maybe no Rodgers. And that running game does not look good. Jamal Williams, terrible. He's not a very good running back. Ty Montgomery, he's just not really a running back. He's more really a receiver. And once Aaron Jones gets back, he's going to be their best running back. The Chargers defense, I mean, this is probably going to be the chalk defense. They're kind of underpriced after a pretty bad last week. They got torched by Tyreek Hill, giving up a return touchdown and a crazy long touchdown. And they're all pretty hurt. Bosa's hurt, and they're missing Verrett, But they were a good defense before their injury, the great defense before the injuries. And now they're a good defense. They get the terrible Bills, and they're either going to get Nathan Peterman or Josh Allen. I've heard Josh Allen. So, I mean, can't really go wrong there. And the Texans defense, the whole team didn't look great last week, and I'm now seeing that is the wrong picture. Don't want to go back through and re-record this, so I'm just going to deal with it. But they get the pretty bad Titans, and Marcus Mariota is going to be hurt or out, so can't really ask for much better there. Honorable mentions, the only one I had was the Jets defense. They made Matthew Stafford look silly. And they get the Dolphins, who aren't a terrible offense with Drake and Gore and Kenny Stills, not Jarvis, he's gone. Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker maybe coming back, and Tannehill's not too bad, but they're still not a top half offense. And I didn't see a lot of defenses that I really liked this week, so if you wanted to spend on one of those higher ones, then I wouldn't blame you this week. But anyways, moving on. Be sure to go to statroute.com and check this out, because this is what I use to get the majority of my stats. It's a great website, and you can get a 2-week trial for free. So go check it out. And lastly, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Go to Twitter and follow me at 4th Down Fantasy to get the rest of my picks, news, updates, rankings. You can ask me anything you need there. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment all you want to see, what you agree with, what you don't, and how your team's fared this week. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.